Hello everybody, day today. So I just want to break down some of the numbers and just give a little bit of analysis on what happened today. So this morning, Canadian CPI was released. That refers to inflation. Obviously, it's one of the big things that the Bank of Canada is keeping a close eye on as they decide on when to start to raise rates. So the number came in at 0.9%, non-seasonally adjusted, and that's for the month of January. So that pushed the annual rate up to 5.1%. Now this is following last month's 4.8% annual number. So inflation continues to creep a little bit higher because of different factors and costs within the inflation group. Now ex-food and gas, which is referred to as core inflation, removes the impact of food and gas prices on inflation. This number came in at 3.5%. Now the reason they also released this number is because food and gas typically is more volatile, so they sort of removed that to look at core inflation to get a better sense of the more stable items within the basket that they use when making this calculation. Now 3.5% isn't terrible, however it still is higher than what the bank is comfortable with, and obviously people still have to pay for gas and they still have to pay for food. So really the consumer feels the headline number, which is why that number is reported as well. Now the 5.1% is the highest number since December 1991. So this is a big issue and the bank will have to start to address this with higher rates shortly. Now, gas, I mentioned gas prices. Gas prices are actually 32% higher this year than this time last year. That's a huge jump in prices. And of course, that's going to hit consumers' bank accounts very easily because gas is pretty costly and it's a big jump. Now, the gains just weren't, or the price increases weren't just in gas and food. It was pretty broad-based, which is why it's also a big issue. So a couple different sectors that I'm going to just look at quickly. Durable goods, which have been impacted by supply chain issues, as well as just global demand in general, that was up 4.7%. Now within that sort of sector, the biggest contributor were new car sales, which was up 5.2%. Now a lot of that obviously are the dealerships, lack of supply because of the chip shortage. They're passing on this input, I guess, price increase to the consumers, which is why consumers are paying more for new cars. Now, groceries is another big contributor here. And with groceries, it came in up 6.5%. Now, this is the highest number in that area since 2009. And lastly, everyone's favorite topic, housing. But within the inflation basket, the term they use is called shelter costs. And what shelter costs refers to are home prices, rents, utilities, and insurance. Now, this number came in up 6.2%. And BMO noted today in their report on inflation that this is the highest number since 1990, which was when the housing bubble occurred. Now, they're not inferring anything, they're not making any correlation, it's just a sort of note they put out there, and I thought I would kind of mention that as well because it's just an interesting statistic. The last time that sector within the inflation basket was that high was when there was a housing crash. Now, let me just say right now, in Canada, I don't think there'll be a housing crash, but obviously I do expect some softness in the market going forward in the next couple of years as interest rates meaningfully increase. Won't be, this year sort of thing, but the market will soften. I'll talk more about that offline if anyone has any questions. Now, this is a big issue, inflation, right? So now obviously the Bank of Canada has to do something to address this. And if you watch the news, if you watch anything, everyone's talking about, okay, the Bank of Canada has to raise rates soon. 100%, they will be, and they've already stated that at the last meeting, that interest rates will be going up steadily. Now I want to address two things on that topic, okay? So the first one is sort of why do higher rates combat inflation? So to address that, I'm going to talk about the other way first. When rates are extremely low, what does that do? That stimulates the economy. People will take out mortgages, cheap debt, right? Oh, I can borrow $800,000 pretty cheap under 2%. Cool, let me go do that and buy a house. So it drives up demand for housing, increasing prices. People take out other large loans for big ticket items. Maybe you buy a car. Maybe you buy trips, buy other things, other assets, take out money on a line of credit and go put it into equity markets. And as long as you outperform what your cost of debt is, you made money there. So there's a lot of things that does, which stimulates the economy. Now, the other way is once they start to increase rates, now borrowing costs are going to be a lot higher. Okay, so now maybe you don't buy that shiny new toy. Maybe you don't necessarily do anything on the housing front, right? Maybe you don't have to move to that big mansion or upsize necessarily, right? So it acts to slow things down. And really, this will impact prices because now less demand for the goods, naturally prices will come down a bit. So that's how it addresses high inflation. Now, the other thing I want to talk about is the Bank of Canada and when they start to raise rates and what that means. I'm seeing a lot of stuff on social media from realtors or other people where they're like, yeah, for sure the Bank of Canada is going to hike in March and they're going to hike every meeting, etc., etc. Now, nothing is guaranteed. When I say the financial markets are priced, like fully priced as they are right now, for a rate hike in March, what that means is right now the financial markets have priced it in the interest rate curve that says the Bank of Canada likely will raise 25 basis points in March. But the bank governor, Macklem, and his committee, they decide at that time whether to raise or not. Nothing is ever decided ahead of time. No one knows for sure. Nothing is decided. It is always data dependent. How's employment looking these days? How's the GDP? How's inflation? What kind of geopolitical risks are going on right now? How's the pandemic? Which is, why they didn't raise last time. They said the lockdowns of Omicron factored in. So there's a lot of stuff that goes into the decision. So don't listen to anyone who says, oh, it's guaranteed 100% they're going to go. They're likely going to go because of these reasons, but it's not assured. Now, also, when you say 4 hikes in a row, let's say, for example, BMO's calling for 4 hikes in a row. There's certain dates where Bank of Canada meets. There's 8 during the year. So on these specific dates, Bank of Canada meeting dates, is where they have their interest rate policy and they announce whether they're hiking rates or not. So the next meeting is March 2nd, which again, market expectations are that they're going to hike. They probably will, but we'll only find out on March 2nd. Now, the next hike after that, and again, if they hike 25 basis points then now the market has to decide, will they hike again at the next meeting or will they pause? So the next meeting after that is April 13th. So again, depends on what happens March 2nd, depends how the data is from now till March 2nd and how the data is from March 2nd till April 13th. And then they will decide whether they hike at that point or not. Now, after that one, the following meeting after that is June the 1st. So they actually don't have a meeting in May, they have one in June. So if someone says they're going to go hike 3 times in a row, that possibly means March, April, and June. Or if they skip the March meeting, then it means April, June, and July, which is the next meeting. And these meeting dates are published online. You can Google Bank of Canada meeting dates 2022, and you'll see the 8 dates there. Okay, so I just want to clarify that because I'm seeing a lot of misinformation out there where guys, are sort of saying things that aren't necessarily true. And I just want to make sure that sort of my audience understands what it means when I say the Bank of Canada is likely going to hike or the market's pricing it in or, BMO says 4 rate hikes in a row, what that actually means, okay? So hopefully that clarifies everything. As always, happy to talk about this in depth offline. If you guys have any questions, shoot me a DM, let's chat. And of course, housing related stuff, if you're in the market looking to sell or buy and you want to know, okay, is it the right time? What's going to be the impact when rates start to increase? If I'm a buyer, if I'm a seller, etc. Let's jump on a call and I'll kind of give you a little bit more input, okay? Thanks a lot. Have a good one.